Everyone assumed Iran was alone in this war, completely surrounded, facing the most powerful military force assembled in decades, with no real allies capable of changing the outcome. The calculation was simple. How long before one country cracks under that kind of pressure? That calculation just fell apart, because Yemen didn't walk into this war. It didn't send a diplomatic note or make a political statement. It launched one of the biggest military operations in its history. Missiles, drones, a declared entry into an active conflict against the United States and Israel. And with that single move, something on the strategic map changed that cannot be reversed. 2 choke points, 2 fronts, 1 trap. And America didn't stumble into it. It ran. But here's the question that almost nobody is asking right now. Can the most powerful military on Earth sustain a war it never fully planned for, against an enemy it consistently underestimated, across 2 simultaneous fronts that together control the flow of energy and trade to every economy on the planet? That answer is going to change everything you think you know about how this conflict ends. Stay with me. Hit subscribe right now and like this video before we go any further. What I am about to walk you through is the part of this picture that most coverage is missing completely. And once you see it, every headline coming out of this war starts reading very differently. For the entire first month of this war, one idea ran through every analysis, every news network, every government calculation about how this ends. Iran was fighting alone, one country against the full combined weight of America's military machine. The strategy built around that idea was straightforward. Apply enough pressure, conduct enough strikes, degrade enough capability, and eventually the cost becomes too high to keep going. That was the plan. That was the expectation. And that plan assumed Yemen would stay out. It didn't. On March 28th, Yemen's Houthi forces launched their first military operation of this war, a barrage of ballistic missiles aimed at military sites in southern Israel. Their spokesman, Yahya Saree, made a public statement. The operations will continue until aggression against all fronts of the resistance stops. The following day came a second operation, cruise missiles and drones, and the message was clear. This is not a one-time gesture. This is an entry. Now, to really understand why that matters so much, not just politically but structurally, you need to look at a map. Not a political map, a geographic one. Yemen sits at the edge of the Bab al-Mandab Strait, a narrow passage at the southern end of the Red Sea, just 29 kilometers wide at its tightest point. Every single day through that corridor, an enormous volume of the world's trade moves quietly. Oil tankers, container ships packed with manufactured goods, bulk carriers moving food and raw materials. Approximately 15% of all global maritime trade passes through that strait. Around 30% of all container ship traffic in the world uses this route every year. That passage is not just important, it is load-bearing for the global economy. And Yemen, a country the world largely stopped paying attention to after the Saudi ceasefire, has the proven ability to threaten it. Not permanently, not completely, but enough. The Houthi deputy information minister said it directly to CNN this week. Closing the Bab al-Mandab is a viable option. The consequences, he said, will be borne by the American and Israeli aggressors. That is not a diplomatic statement. That is a warning from someone who has done this before and knows exactly what it costs when they do. Here is where the picture becomes genuinely alarming. Yemen doesn't sit in isolation on the map. Look east from Yemen, and you find Iran, with its demonstrated ability to threaten and effectively close the Strait of Hormuz. That's the other great choke point. The narrow corridor connecting the Persian Gulf to global markets, through which roughly 20% of the world's daily oil supply moves. Before Yemen entered this war, one choke point was under pressure. Now look at where we are. The Strait of Hormuz to the east, effectively closed to US and Israeli-linked shipping since February 28th. The Bab al-Mandab to the west, controlled by the Houthis, with the open public threat of full closure sitting on the table. 2 choke points, both critical, both under simultaneous coordinated threat, for the first time in modern history. Between these 2 corridors flows the energy and trade that keeps the global economy alive. 1 trap, 2 doors, America standing in the middle. And here's the operational problem this creates that no amount of additional firepower can simply solve. Every resource America commits to managing Yemen and the Red Sea is a resource it cannot put in the Persian Gulf. Every interceptor missile fired at a Houthi drone over the Red Sea is one fewer interceptor available for the next Iranian ballistic missile coming from the east. The mathematics of fighting in 2 directions at once is not just logistically complicated, it is a structural drain. Most people watching this conflict are still looking at Yemen through the wrong lens. They see rubble. They see a country that got bombed for years. They see a place that has no functioning economy and no real air force. And they ask, what can a place like that possibly do to the most powerful military on Earth? That question sounds reasonable, but it is exactly the wrong question to be asking. Here is what almost no one paid attention to while the rest of the world moved on to other headlines. Yemen did not stop building after the Saudi ceasefire. While analysts wrote Yemen off as a broken, exhausted force, something very different was happening on the ground. The drones got more sophisticated, the anti-ship missiles got more precise, the range extended, the naval capabilities expanded. Every year of the ceasefire that the world assumed was a year of rest was actually a year of preparation. For 7 consecutive years, Saudi Arabia waged a full military campaign against Yemen with complete Western backing. American naval forces patrolled the Red Sea. American targeting intelligence went to Saudi air operations. The stated goal was simple: break Yemen, force surrender, end the resistance permanently. They imposed a blockade that cut off food and medicine. Yemen absorbed 7 years of that, and it did not fall. What finally ended that war was not Yemen giving in. What ended it was Yemen striking Saudi Arabia's oil and gas infrastructure with such accuracy and such consistency that Saudi Arabia's economy started bleeding in ways it couldn't absorb. Drones and cruise missiles penetrated American and Saudi air defense systems and hit their targets with a level of precision that genuinely stunned military analysts. The ceasefire was, by any honest strategic reading, a Yemen victory. Think of a room with 4 walls and 1 door. Now picture that door closing slowly. That is not a metaphor. That is the precise structural reality of what American military planners are navigating in this war right now. Start with the East. Iran controls or can effectively threaten the Strait of Hormuz. The credible demonstrated threat of closure is enough to send oil prices into territory that damages every economy simultaneously. Brent crude hit $141 per barrel last week. With Hormuz effectively closed, Saudi Arabia rerouted its oil exports through its east-west pipeline to the Red Sea port of Yanbu. Tanker traffic at Yanbu has surged. It became the alternative lifeline for Gulf oil. If the Houthis decide to hit Yanbu and disrupt those exports, you're looking at a disruption of 7 million barrels per day gone from global supply, on top of everything already gone from Hormuz. Analysts are projecting $200 per barrel. At $200 per barrel, the damage is not just expensive fuel. It destabilizes governments. It breaks supply chains. It generates inflation that central banks cannot contain, regardless of interest rates. So America is not managing one front. It is managing 3 simultaneously. Yemen from the west, Iran from the east, Iraq from the north. And inside each of those fronts, the weapons economics are deeply uncomfortable. Each Iranian ballistic missile is being engaged by approximately 11 American interceptors. Each American interceptor costs between $3 and $10 million. Iranian drones cost roughly $50,000 each. Every shot is permanently gone from the inventory. Every war in history has had 2 battlefields. One where soldiers fight, one where economies bleed and political will erodes. The second battlefield is now far more decisive than the first. Ships reroute, journeys extend by weeks, fuel costs climb. There is a built-in delay in the global supply chain. The full economic pain of what is being created right now has not arrived yet. It is in transit, moving quietly toward every economy on Earth. The moment oil hits $150 a barrel, the political scorecard changes. Cheap fuel requires open shipping lanes. Domestic political will doesn't weaken gradually. It collapses fast. Iran and Yemen understand this timeline with complete clarity. There is one dimension Western analysis keeps systematically underestimating: the human resilience on the other side. This is a civilization with 3,000 years of continuous history. They have outlasted every outside force that tried to break them. This capacity to sustain purpose under maximum external pressure cannot be replicated by signing a contract. It is built through decades of shared experience, shared cost, and shared survival. Every assessment proved wrong, and the pattern has not changed. Every day this war continues without resolution, the trap tightens. Every interceptor fired reduces the stockpile. Every week pushes the domestic political cost higher in every allied capital at the same time. This is the part of the picture most coverage is missing. The question, the only question that has ever strategically mattered, is at what cost does it end? Will the exit look anything like what was promised? The answer is already becoming visible. It will look like the moment when overextension finally met its limit. Is there a path to a negotiated settlement? Drop your analysis in the comments. Hit subscribe if you're not already in. Hit like if this gave you something real to think about. This is Global Context. Stay with us.